Guarding the Reservoir. 1. Guarding the River of Time. Chapter 31. The Yuankui realm was forcibly removed by a certain powerful being. I don't know where it was moved. Now that Guyu Immortal territory is in crisis, I hope we should unanimously deal with the outside world instead of making small moves ourselves. Once Guyu Immortal realm falls, is there any point in you fighting over it? Even if I let you sit in my position, will you be able to sit firmly? The 6 realm masters grasped a key word in Lin Dong's words. Was the Yuankui realm moved away? Isn't this a bit ridiculous? It's not like they don't know how big Yuankui realm is. 1 Yuankui realm is as big as 2.5 realms. Lord Territory Lord, are you kidding? Not to mention our Guyu Immortal realm, even if there are several great immortal realms around, no one can move the entire Yuankui realm away. The 6 world leaders obviously did not believe what Lin Dong said. Move the Yuankui boundary through the air. Are you kidding me? It's noisy. Hearing this, Lin Dong frowned and said coldly, I'm just informing you, I don't need you to believe it. Also, I order you by the order of the Territory Lord. As for the reason for the disappearance of Yuankui realm, you do not need to give any other explanation to the outside world, so as not to cause panic. Also, you must take good care of the people under your command and do not delve into the reasons for the disappearance of Yuankui realm. Once you anger the terrifying existence, it will put Guyu Immortal domain into a place of eternal disaster. After saying that, he turned around and left. After Lin Dong and others left, the 6 realm masters looked at each other in disbelief, and they all saw the disbelief in each other's eyes. What do you think? What do you think? Do you believe this? I think you have been kneeling in front of Lin Dong for a long time and can't stand up anymore. Lin Dong also treats us as 3-year-old children. I guess the Yuankui realm was hidden by him in order to make us relax our vigilance. After all, in recent years, many of the forces in our 6 major realms have been infiltrated by his descendants. Quote. I don't believe it either. If that person is really so outrageous and has the ability, he would kidnap the whole Flame Cave realm from me right now. Okay, let's break up. It's really boring. Soon, the 6 world masters left this place. On the river bank, in front of the stone house. We haven't seen each other for just 1 day, how big have we grown? When Su Mu came to the small puddle, he saw that the baby crab was a lot bigger than yesterday, already half the size of a hand. Yesterday it was only the size of a thumb. Why is the water missing by half? You guys, do you drink so much water a day? Su Mu was surprised when he saw that half of the water in the puddle was gone. Does this crab still drink water? It drinks so much. Su Mu came to the shore, found the same water area as yesterday, used his magical power to control water, pumped water from the river twice more, and filled the puddle again. At this time, Su Mu felt the little crab's grateful mental response towards him. Crabs should eat some small fish and shrimps, right? There is really no research on what food it eats with crabs. He only knows how to eat crabs, who cares what crabs eat? Su Mu kept a small part of the small fish and shrimps he caught from the cage today and threw them into the small puddle. Eat more, grow taller. At this moment, Guyu Immortal Realm. The 4 realm lords knelt outside the Territory Lord Hall early in the morning, each with a fearful expression. Brother General, where is your majesty? Why hasn't your majesty come yet? The 4 realm lords have changed their previous unruly appearance and are now as humble as possible. It has only been a few years since Yuankui realm disappeared. Just an hour ago, a pair of void hands crushed the void and separated the Flame Cave realm, Liyuan realm, and Zhengyu realm among the 7 realms. Taken away directly. The realm master of Liyuan realm was lucky. He happened not to be in Liyuan realm and was not captured by Lianren in the whole world. But he witnessed the whole process of the entire Liyuan realm being taken away by those big hands of nothingness. As the leader of a realm, he was frightened. But Ji Bocheng from the Flame Cave realm and Zhang Gushan from the Zhengyu realm were not so lucky. They were taken away directly from the 2 realms, and they were probably in bad luck. Although the remaining 3 realm masters have not been affected yet, they are still frightened and do not even dare to return home, for fear that it will be their turn tomorrow. Wait a moment, the king is already aware of this matter. He is dealing with some important matters and will be here soon. General Cheng looked at the 4 trembling realm masters and felt speechless in his heart. I had clearly reminded them a few years ago, but they didn't take it seriously at all, and even felt that the king had deceived them. Do you believe it now? Only now do you know that you came to the king to cry and ask for asylum. After a while, Lindong walked out of the void with a tired look on his face. At this moment, he is much older than he was a few years ago. Seeing Lin Dong's arrival, the four world leaders knelt down and said, "Please punish me." Hearing this, Lin Dong smiled bitterly and did not blame them. Nowadays, Lin Dong is alone and has turned his back on many things. "Get up, you have no sin," Lin Dong said to the four world masters. What crime are they guilty of? They just don't believe it. Even if they believe it at first, even if they unite to resist, what will happen? Can it change the result that the three realms are being kidnapped now? Not really. Those supreme beings sitting above the clouds can decide the decline of a fairyland and the life and death of all of them with just a wave of their hands. They are like dirt on the ground. To people passing by, they just pass by normally and trample you. And what can you change? What does destroying you do to you? This is the sorrow of the weak and the despair of the weak. Guyu Immortal Realm is on the verge of collapse. You should leave here early. If you come to beg me, I don't have the ability to protect you. Let's go to other great immortal realms. Lin Dong waved his hand to the four realm masters and said. In this way, the prosperous Guyu Immortal Domain began to decline. Your Majesty, are we leaving? Zhang Cheng asked, looking at the fragmented Guyu Immortal Domain. Let's go to Qingyu. Start all over again. After losing all his close relatives, Lin Dong felt that his bottleneck was loosened, his mood was improved, and his blood that had cooled down was burning again at this moment. He is ready to go to a new place, start from scratch, and pursue a higher realm. And he will never forget this day. One day, he will face that figure and let him pay with blood. Ah Chu. Su Mu, who was repairing the river channel, sneezed violently and frowned. Is someone scolding me behind my back again? Why do you keep sneezing lately? At this time, there was movement on the river. Su Mu raised his head and looked downstream, and saw several figures sitting on small boats heading towards him. Seeing this, Su Mu was overjoyed. After waiting for so long, someone is finally here. Is he a time traveler? It doesn't look like it. Why are there so many people? Su Mu stepped on the water and walked step by step towards the boat. After Su Mu got closer, he realized that there were 5 people standing on the boat. This boat is several times larger than the previous boats. It is pitch black and has a square shape, a bit like a coffin without a lid. In front of this coffin-like boat, there are 9 small black snakes, leading the boat upstream. The 5 figures on the boat, 3 men and 2 women, all looked young and in their prime. Some looked excited, some looked curious, and some looked frightened. Brother Yi, where are we going? A slightly burly young man asked a young man with a resolute face and black hair next to him. I don't know, but what is worth confirming is that we should be leaving Blue Star now. Yi Fan frowned, looked at the endless river, and murmured. This is a woman with a good figure and wearing a light blue dress. She looks around with a frightened face, her expression is a little nervous, and she subconsciously leans back towards Yi Fan. Can we go back? Lu Yi was very nervous. Since the sudden change in Mount Tai, they had been separated from other classmates and teachers. Yi Fan, who had always been taciturn, was very calm at the moment, so she came to leaning behind Yi Fan. Li Xiaoman, who was standing behind Lu Yi, was very scared, but besides being scared, she was also a little excited. She liked excitement, so she disliked the taciturn Yi Fan and broke up with him. A slightly burly young man named Pang Bo is Yi Fan's good brother. Although he is a little scared, he is also very calm at the moment. Among them, the most calm one was Yi Fan. Instead, he was thinking about his Mercedes parked at the foot of Mount Tai. If he didn't go back quickly, he would have to pay more parking fees. There, why does it seem like there is a person walking towards us? Lu Yi pointed ahead. At this moment, a thin layer of mist had appeared on the river. They could only vaguely see a figure walking towards them on the upper reaches of the river. It seems like walking on the river. Pang Bo said with a shocked expression. They are all young people in the new century who advocate science and are skeptical of all supernatural phenomena. However, what happened in the past 2 days has broken their cognition time and time again. At this time, everyone's eyes fell on the figure walking towards them. Almost in an instant, the figure seemed to teleport, from a distance of several thousand meters to only 10 meters away. Only then did they see the figure clearly. He is tall and thin, wearing a clean and simple blue robe, with sharp edges like a knife, sword-shaped eyebrows and starry eyes, especially those eyes, which are as deep as stars. Gu Bo is not surprised. Standing on the water, the mist on the river was like fairy mist, surrounding him. For a moment, the 5 people were stunned. It was like a man who had stepped out of a myth, making people afraid to look at him. For a time, they forgot how to speak. Before they could speak, the man's ethereal voice came slowly. Where are you from? This voice, like the sound of a fairy, kept echoing in their minds, making them subconsciously tell the truth and not dare to deceive. At this time, Yi Fan, who was the backbone of the group, took a step forward and replied, returning to this senior, we come from another distant place. I don't know where we are now or where we are going. After hearing these words, Su Mu already had the answer in his heart. He was indeed a time traveler from another world. But the man who answered his question seemed calmer than the others. He didn't reveal the specific world he came from, but he didn't dare to deceive himself, but answered himself ambiguously. In fact, Su Mu was not interested in what world they came from. Anyway, they were all time travelers. As long as he knew that they were time travelers, that was enough. Oh. If you want to cross this river, you have to pay a crossing fee. Su Mu lay down in front of the boat. He used his magical power to still the water area where the boat was, so the 9 black snakes pulling the boat were also forced to stop. This is the 4th time Su Mu has seen the time traveler. But this time, the travelers were different from the previous ones. There were actually 9 little black snakes pulling the boat, and 5 of them traveled through it at once. This is a good thing. The more people travel, the more tolls you collect and the more favors you earn. Senior, do you think this is okay? Yi Fan took out $100 bills from his body and handed them to Su Mu. The moment Su Mu saw these 100 yuan bills, Su Mu's pupils shrank. Ah, my fellow countrymen. He also traveled from Blue Star. As the saying goes, when fellow villagers meet fellow villagers, they are particularly cordial. However, there is another saying, fellow villagers. Those who are being slaughtered are fellow villagers. Su Mu could give him a discount for the sake of his fellow villagers, but the tolls were unavoidable. Su Mu was not a philanthropic person. Whenever he crossed the river he guarded, even if the King of Heaven came, he would still have to leave money to pay for the passage. This is the rule. This won't work. Su Mu shook his head. What's the use of holding these 100 yuan bills? I have to hand over something useful anyway. Hearing these words, Yi Fan also confirmed one thing, that is, he must have left Blue Star. Otherwise, there is nothing that money cannot do in Blue Star. If not, it must not be enough. Isn't it enough? At this time, Peng Bo took out a bank card and said, the password is 3638, and there are 500,000 in it. After hearing these words, Su Mu still shook his head. 500,000, for me before time travel, could be used as a down payment for buying a house. But now, let alone 500,000, even 500 billion are all waste paper in his eyes. To be precise, Su Mu only sees treasures now, treasures that are valuable to him. Seeing that so much money was not feasible, the 5 people knew that they were definitely no longer in Blue Star. However, if you think about it carefully, it's normal. Is there anyone in Blue Star who can teleport thousands of meters in an instant, or can step on the water? This is definitely a bizarre supernatural world. Li Xiaoman pursed his lips, made a decision in his heart, walked forward, pursed his lips, and said softly, Senior. If you don't mind, I can stay with you. As soon as these words came out, except for Yi Fan, the other 3 people looked at Li Xiaoman in surprise. Hearing this, Su Mu frowned and said, let me tell you for the last time, what I want is tolls and treasures. If you dare to say these words again, do you believe I will throw you into the river and feed you to the fish? As soon as these words came out, Li Xiaoman was so frightened that he turned pale and did not dare to think any more. The 5 people felt a little uneasy when they saw that no matter what method they tried, it would not work. Yi Fan walked out and said to Su Mu, Senior, I don't have the treasure you want for the time being. If you can trust me, I will sign an IOU with you. When I find the treasure, I will return it to you as soon as possible. Hearing these words, Sumyu raised his eyebrows and his eyes lit up. Sensible. He didn't even say that he wanted to sign an IOU or a loan contract, but he proposed it first. He looked at the young man up and down. He was completely different from the other four people. He was very calm throughout the process, and his thinking was quick and clear. May I have your name? Sumyu asked. Yi Fan. When Sumyu heard the surname, Yi, he understood. It seemed that this was the real protagonist, and the other four were just supporting characters. However, these protagonists all have one problem. They love to be smart. How could Sumyu not see Yi Fan's little thoughts? With his current cultivation level and what the other person is thinking, he can detect it at a glance, so Yi Fan's seemingly sensible and smart behaviors are just children's tricks in his eyes. In fact, a truly powerful villain with a little bit of brains can easily suppress those protagonists who like to dance. He used to like reading novels and thought the protagonist was so smart and powerful that he played the villain in circles. But now he finally understands that those authors made the villains too intellectual and too silly. If he wants to obliterate the protagonist Yi Fan, he only needs to wave his hand. A truly powerful villain should be cautious, suspicious by nature, root out the enemy at every step, be ruthless and not look down on the other party as weak, but must get things done. But Sumyu didn't want to be a villain. From beginning to end, he was just collecting tolls. Although Sumyu originally planned to let them sign a loan contract, he didn't like being led by others. If you want to mention it, Sumyu himself should mention it first. You showed off your cool moves in various ways from the beginning, obviously you are, right. Your name is Yi Fan, right? Okay, I will give you more loans. Let you have a long memory, let you gain wisdom after eating, so that when you meet a villain like me in the future, you will not be slapped to death. Sumyu first ignored Yi Fan's request. Instead, he took 4 contracts that he had drawn up in advance and handed them to the other 4 people. Although Yi Fan is the real protagonist, the river crossing fee is charged per person. No matter you are the protagonist or a supporting role, as long as you pass from here, you have to hand over something and you will be treated equally. The other 4 people who took over the contract quickly signed their names without any hesitation. Bite your finger and make a blood mark with blood. After Sumyu finished speaking, the 4 of them immediately followed suit. Yi Fan, standing next to Peng Bo, glanced at the amount owed on the contract. 10 treasures, 1 billion spiritual stones. Ah. Although Yi Fan doesn't know the probability of a billion spirit stones, this spirit stone sounds like an extraordinary thing. A simple conversion, even if 1 spirit stone is only equivalent to $1 of blue star, then this is $1 billion. Moreover, this is only the most conservative estimate. Is this riverkeeper so dark? However, why didn't this senior allow him to sign? He should probably give himself a break. It seems that it is indeed beneficial to speak more and act calmer. After signing the contract, Sumyu checked it carefully and put it away after confirming that there was no problem. At this time, Yi Fanfa asked, "Senior, can we leave?" "Wait, there's you. This is for you." Sumyu took out a new loan contract tailor-made for him and handed it to Yi Fan. After taking the contract and seeing the most important loan amount clearly, he was stunned. After confirming that he had read it correctly, he raised his head and looked at Sumyu and asked, "Senior, you get it by mistake? Why is what I signed different from what they signed?" Yi Fan was also dumbfounded. Why were they 10 treasures, and themselves became 1,000? They are 1 billion spiritual stones, and they have become 10 trillion. Moreover, this 1,000 treasures is too general, right? What is a treasure? How to define treasure? Moreover, there is a sentence at the end of the contract, "The final interpretation right of this contract belongs to me." Isn't this a black contract? He has the final say as to what a treasure is. He didn't understand why he was targeted. What's more, he was the one who proposed to sign the contract in the first place. Although this was just a stopgap measure and he had no intention of repaying it, he didn't know what he was thinking, so why should he target him? Unfair. This is so unfair. Any questions? Sumyu frowned and asked, and the overflowing breath made Yi Fan feel that the blood in his body was about to solidify. No problem. Yi Fan tried his best to stay calm and kept telling himself that he must be calm and not get confused. Anyway, it's just a temporary measure, just sign it. Anyway, I don't plan to pay it back in the future. I'll go through this first. After that, Yi Fan quickly signed his name, bit in his thumb like the other four, and put a blood seal on his name. After taking the contract and checking it carefully, Sumyu finally smiled. After signing the contract, it can be regarded as prepaying the cost of crossing the river. Congratulations everyone, I wish you a pleasant journey. But don't forget that this loan contract carries interest and has a limited time. Don't take chances, don't delay, and don't think about not paying it back. Go over there and develop well. I will come find you when you are done. Sumyu showed his trademark polite smile and his trademark cliché. These words, he would say to every traveler, have formed an assembly line template. As long as the contract is signed and the river crossing fee is paid, everything is fine. After seeing this terrifying man change his attitude, the four of them breathed a sigh of relief, but Yi Fan held his breath. Sumyu made way for the boat and lifted the stillness of the water. I wish you all a pleasant journey. Sumyu smiled and waved. However, the road was cleared, and the 9 little black snakes pulling the boat seemed to be frightened and stayed in place, not daring to move. Let's go. Keep pulling. Otherwise, I'll ask the little dolphinfish and the small whole ray to come for extra meals. As soon as he said these words, he could feel the small dolphins and rays rushing towards his waters, as if they were coming to rescue him. The 9 little black snakes felt something and were frightened. They pulled the 5 people on the boat and fled towards the front. Seeing the retreating figure, Sumyu suddenly saw something written on the stern of the boat and frowned. The next second, he appeared in front of the boat again and stopped the boat again. Seeing this, the 5 people were dumbfounded. What the hell? Come again. Yi Fan only felt a burst of energy, which went straight to the Tianling cap, and almost fainted from the anger. Senior, what's going on? Yi Fan asked, suppressing his anger. Yi Fan has been holding back his anger and did not dare to express it, so he signed the sky-high contract himself. How? Put aside this card bug and sign repeatedly, right? Don't worry, I have principles in doing things. Once you cross the river, you get paid once. Sumyu didn't intend to collect money again, but he discovered something unusual. After he forced the boat to stop, he walked behind the boat and found a string of characters written on the stern. However, he did not recognize these ancient characters, but he could roughly tell that this one was a place name. Written on the bow of this boat is the place where Yi Fan and others are going, a place called Beidou. Through previous experiences, he knew that it was normal for a place name to be written on the bow, but it would be strange to have another place name written on the stern. This was the first time he encountered it. However, he didn't know these words. That's all, why do you care so much? As long as nothing happens to the river that I'm guarding, it'll be fine. After confirming that there were only ancient characters and no other dangers, Sumyu patted the dust on his hands and said with a smile, don't worry, I'm just checking whether you brought any dangerous items across the river. After saying that, a few people breathed a sigh of relief. How come they felt like they were riding a high-speed train? After that, Sumyu lifted the stillness of the water. As soon as the stillness in the waters was lifted, the 9 little black snakes pulling the boat fled forward crazily. After sending away this group of time travelers, the system's announcement sounded in my mind. Congratulations to the host, you have maintained order and peace, and triggered additional rewards, favor points plus 5,500. Hearing this, Sumyu was stunned for a moment. My dear. 5,005. A one-time reward of 5,000 and 5,000. The happiness came so suddenly, Sumyu was a little flattered. 5,005 favor points, plus the 500 favor points saved in the past 2 days, Sumyu feels rich again. Bet on. Forget it, let's not gamble now. In order to prevent yourself from being tempted to gamble, use it to increase your affinity first. Care point 5,000. River affinity. Percent right pointing arrow, river affinity, percent. As the affinity increased to percent, Sumyu could feel that his compatibility with the river had increased slightly. Sometimes, Sumyu really wants to call the police. He has become a great monk in the divine realm, and he is still trapped on this river. The most fool thing is that he must refine this river before he can leave. Take care of me more. Please bring in more time travelers. It would be great to have 1,800 people in one day. Or, just let someone cause trouble. Forget it, let's just patrol down to Earth. Sumu followed the river again and started today's patrol mission. At this moment, Wusuyuan, Black Central Realm. In the imaginary Black Central Realm, there were 4 indescribable huge chaotic black shadows, which gradually shrank and finally turned into 4 human figures. The moment the 4 figures appeared, the powerful aura emitted caused the entire Black Central Realm to continuously shake. The leader was a man with a pale face. He was so skinny that his fingers had no face, and he could only see the bones that looked like white jade. The 3 men behind him are tall. The tallest one is 3 meters tall, with fine scales covering his face, a dragon tail growing behind him, and a majestic face. The remaining 2 were both 2 meters tall. Their purple-black panels were like eyes of an abyss, with little bits of destructive fairy light constantly evolving and disappearing in their eyes. It's been 800 years, and finally recovered. The majestic man with the dragon's tail looked up to the sky and roared, causing the surrounding space to collapse and collapse. Dark Emperor, I told you, don't be too happy too early. Your Majesty used part of his willpower to help us get out of trouble. It originally allowed us 500 years to recover our bodies, but now, it has been 800 years, and it has exceeded 300 years. The Bone Emperor's words brought the other 3 emperors back to the cruel reality. The next second, an illusory figure with an unclear face tore through the space and landed in the void. After seeing this illusory figure, the 4 emperors knelt down and clasped their fists and said, Your Majesty, please punish me. They were terrified in their hearts. After all, they were 300 years too late, and they didn't know if they had delayed the situation on the main battlefield. The illusory figure did not answer. With a wave of his hand, the dark coffin appeared in front of the 4 emperors again. Change of plans. On this trip, you don't have to go to the Huainan realm 5,000 years ago, but to the Shaochen realm 7,000 years ago. Kill him who is weaker. Hearing this, the 4 emperors showed a puzzled expression. Your Majesty, did something unexpected happen on the battlefield? Bone Emperor asked. No, in just 800 years, nothing changed in the blink of an eye. What I'm worried about is that you might not be able to kill him 5,000 years ago. After all, he was already famous and emerging at that time. The voice of an illusory figure came. Your Majesty, it's not that I'm arrogant. I could have dealt with him 5,000 years ago, let alone the 4 of us going together. Bone Emperor is not an arrogant character, on the contrary, he is very cautious. Even for such a cautious person, he said these words. From this, it can be seen that this task is very simple and 100% sure. The other 3 emperors also echoed. He was a whole level lower than them 5,000 years ago. In the eyes of the 4 emperors, he was an ant that could be crushed with one hand. Don't you know the temporal causal effect? As soon as these words came out, the 4 emperors looked at each other, somewhat confused as to what they meant. May I ask, Your Majesty, what is the temporal causal effect? 4 emperors. We go against the long river of time, go to the past, and kill each other's past body. Then the other person's future body will most likely come back to save his past body. This is the time causality effect. If we try to change time, then cause and effect will definitely occur, and the other party may notice it. Because, as long as your cultivation level reaches our level, the river of time can be traversed at will. We can wear it, and so can the other party or each other's friends. So, I asked you to travel back to 7,000 years ago and kill him in an instant before his future body comes. This way, the success rate is higher. If we can't kill him successfully, we have to leave the black coffin in the past. The illusory figure explained word for word. Hearing this, the 4 emperors suddenly realized. Indeed, they only thought about going back in time to kill the other party, but they forgot that the other party could also go back in time to stop them. This trip must be successful. The illusory figure warned. Your Majesty, there is something I don't know whether I should say. The Bone Emperor recalled that more than 1,000 years ago, they jointly sent the black coffin into the long river of time, but it was reversed twice. However, he was not sure whether his deduction was wrong, so he did not dare to tell his superiors. What's the matter? The illusory figure asked. It's okay, Your Majesty. I think I should be able to solve it without affecting the progress of the plan. The Bone Emperor hesitated for a while, but finally did not say anything. After all, he himself was not sure whether his deduction was correct or not. If he told the things he was unsure about, it would probably distract him. Moreover, Your Majesty has already paved the road to help them recover their bodies and point them in the direction. The four of them only need to walk on the river of time and send the black coffin to the past to complete the task. If you have to worry about everything, wouldn't the four of them be useless? It would be nice if it could be solved. Remember what I said and be sure to finish it. After that, the illusory figure disappeared into the void, and the entire Black Central Realm returned to silence. Among the four emperors, the Bone Emperor has the highest cultivation level and is a 5th level heavenly immortal, followed by the Dark Emperor, who is a 4th level heavenly immortal. The other two emperors, namely Emperor Huan and Emperor Nan, are both 3-realm immortals. Emperor is just a title given to them by the outside world. They are still far away from the real emperor. Time is long as you reach the heavenly realm, you can set foot on it. But they can't stay on the long river of time for long. Going back to the past 7,000 years is already their limit. Once they stay for a long time, the laws of time are disordered, and their bodies will be ruthlessly eroded by time and cause. In just an instant, they will be completely swallowed up by the long river of time, even reincarnation, and everything will turn into nothingness and disappear completely. In the world, we need to hurry up. Having said that, the four of them opened their auras to explore the long river of time that connects all the worlds, the legendary river of rules. After a long time, the four people suddenly opened their eyes. After confirming the coordinates of time and space, they dragged the black coffin, tore through the void, and shuttled towards the river of rules. I don't know how long it took, but the constantly changing emptiness and chaos around me gradually became solid. The vision began to clear, and the four of them stood on the black coffin, which was floating on the river. Shrink your body a little. I'm about to be squeezed out. The Bone Emperor, who is always emotionally stable, cursed angrily at the three big men behind him. This black coffin is only a little wide to begin with, and the place where you can stand is limited. You guys are already big, so why can't you make it smaller? If they accidentally fall into the river of time, even if the great Luo immortal comes, they will not be able to save the three of them. Hearing this, the other three emperors used their magical powers to shrink their bodies to a size similar to that of the Bone Emperor, which was a standard 1.8 meters. After the physical body shrunk, the swaying black coffin stopped shaking and began to move slowly downstream. Although they are immortals, they can only barely set foot on this long river of time, and can only rely on other media to travel through the long river of time. This medium is this black coffin, because the material of this black coffin is the legendary wood of time, which can resist the erosion of the water of time for a short period of time. This is the second time I have set foot on this long river. It's really emotional. The Dark Emperor stood on the black coffin, looking at the endless river of time and sighing with emotion. Recalling the first time I set foot on the river of time, I just gave it a try. Fortunately, there was a senior who led me, otherwise I almost died on the river of time. The Bone Emperor must have been here many times. Hearing this, the Bone Emperor just shook his head and said, the fourth time. The remaining Emperor Nan and Emperor Huan looked a little uneasy, but also a little excited. Because this is the first time they have set foot on the legendary river of time. The river of time does not seem that big or vast and majestic, but this river governs all time rules in the world. It is said that every drop of water in the long river of this world may be a small world. But this is just a legend. As to whether it is true, no one has verified it, and no one has the ability to verify it. Actually, there's nothing strange about it. If you come here a few more times in the future, it won't be like this anymore. Bone Emperor said to Nan Emperor and Huan Emperor. He has successfully crossed the river of time 3 times and is used to it now. As long as he is careful not to fall into the river and not to stay too long, there is nothing else. And they are just immortals, that's all, let alone those powerful immortal kings and immortal emperors. In the eyes of the supreme beings of many immortal kings or immortal emperors, the long river of time. Isn't it just casual? For existences of their level, they can already affect the rules of time. Even if they can't kill you temporarily, I can directly reverse the course of time and kill you. How should you respond? All the worlds have been ruined by this group of powerful immortal emperors who treat the long river of time as their back garden. Nowadays, the war between some supreme immortal sects, supreme forces, and supreme powerful men is not as simple as you punch me, I kick you, you kill my son, I kill your apprentice. Instead, start directly from the long river of time. If I can't defeat you now, can I still defeat you 1,000 years ago? Now that your power has grown to the point where you can compete with me, I will go directly against the long river of time, back to the day you established the sect, and I will stir up everything for you. I will shake all the eggs on the roadside for you. Let me see what else you can do. Development. This is called eradicating it directly from the source. Just like the current 4 emperors, the main battlefield is a bit difficult, so I considered starting with the long river of time. It's a little deserted. After going on for a long time, the Bone Emperor felt something was wrong and a little deserted. He still remembered that the last time he went to the river of time, it was quite lively. Sometimes, at the same time, on this river, all the great immortals, immortal kings, or other powerful immortal emperors are traveling on this long river of time. When you meet someone you know, you will wave and say hello. When you meet an enemy, you have to follow them quietly. This is not a gamble at all. Maybe the other person was there to bully you when you were a child. Do you dare not to follow? If you dare not follow, the other party will dare to throw away your little jouet when you were a child, and directly cut off your descendants. Vicious. Not vicious. Childish. Not childish. War between truly strong men is often so simple and unpretentious. But, they don't dare to fight on the long river of time, because it is too dangerous. No matter how big the hatred is, they will not fight on the long river of time. I sat on the coffin and floated downstream for almost an hour, but I didn't meet anyone. This surprised the Bone Emperor. When did this long river of time become so deserted? Unknowingly, fog began to appear on the river. Seeing this mist, the Bone Emperor's complexion changed drastically, and he growled at the other 3 emperors, "Don't use any spiritual power. You can't feel it, you can't breathe, in short, don't do any other unnecessary actions. This is the mist of time that scares countless big guys. Once lost, you will fall into the eternal cycle of time and never be able to get out. The most effective way is to stay calm, not to disturb the fog of time, and let nature take its course. The more you resist, the deeper you will sink. The rest depends on fate, because the river of time is a river of rules. Even ordinary mist is a power of rules. If you don't pay attention to it, you will easily lose your life." At this time, they looked forward and saw a vague figure in the mist, standing on the water, walking towards them step by step. Seeing this figure, the Bone Emperor's mind suddenly flashed back to that silhouette, and he suddenly felt frightened. The 3 emperors behind him also looked at the approaching figure with a horrified expression as if they were facing a formidable enemy. It's not that you can't move around at will in this fog of time, and you can't make any unnecessary movements, but what's going on with this figure? Why can you travel through the fog of time at will without being affected? The most important thing is not this, why can this figure stand on the water of this long river of time? As the figure approached, they could feel that the water they were in suddenly stopped, and they were frozen in place. They could not move forward, let alone retreat, and could only let the figure approach. The river was very quiet, so quiet that the only sound was the rising and falling breathing between them. Finally, the figure approached 10 meters, and then they could see the figure clearly. This is a human race man who looks very young. He has a handsome appearance, a slender figure, and strong edges. He is dressed in a simple blue and white robe, showing his immortal charm. The most terrifying thing is that he is stepping on the long river of time. The fog of time around him seems to be surrounding him in a vague way. The mist of time is gathering, stepping on the water, walking on time. What kind of existence is this man? The Bone Emperor's pupils shrank sharply, and the back figure he had deduced gradually merged with the figure in front of him. A great fear grew uncontrollably in his heart. It had been a long time since he had felt this kind of fear deep in his soul. Because, he has never seen any living being who can step on the river of time at will, never before. Even if he once saw a supreme being who was transcendent and above the immortal emperor, that supreme being would not dare, let alone step on the water of time. He didn't even dare to inquire about this man's cultivation, because judging from his aura, the sense of pressure this man gave them was not very strong, or even very weak. But the more this happens, the less sure you feel. You can't find out the cultivation level of the truly strong people. The cultivation level you see is just the cultivation level that the other party wants you to see. To be able to stand on the long river of time, what kind of state has this man achieved? At the very least, they are all above the immortal emperor, but as for what realm they are above the immortal emperor, they don't know, and they don't dare to explore too much. Let alone the immortal emperor, an immortal king would crush them to death as easily as ants. Su Mu looked up and down at these four idiots who didn't look very smart. When he saw the black coffin under their feet, Su Mu's face darkened. Good guy. Only then did he remember that some time ago, someone upstream threw coffins and bodies into his river, and he was still angry when he thought about it. This coffin is exactly the same as the one he sent back some time ago. It turned out that it was these four idiots who did it. Do we have to throw the body into the river? It happened that I couldn't find anyone to express my anger, and now it was delivered to my door. If I didn't give it a beating, the anger in my heart would be unreasonable. You four, must you throw corpses into my river? Su Mu held his hands in front of his chest and asked the four people on the coffin. As soon as these words came out, the fourth emperor's heart skipped a beat and he swallowed his saliva unconsciously. This sentence contains a lot of information. His river. And, it turns out that the terrifying existence that once brought their black coffins back was actually the man in front of them. The Bone Emperor suddenly lost his temper. Before he came, he said that if he met the person who ruined his good things twice, he would have to repair him. Now that I have met the person, my temper has disappeared. I don't dare to have any temper at all. I have become an honest person. Please let me go. Senior, we didn't mean to offend. After trying to calm down, the Bone Emperor said weakly. No offense intended. What's in your coffin? Su Mu asked, staring at the black coffin at their feet. This. The four emperors looked at each other, not knowing how to answer. What? Is this question difficult to answer? Su Mu frowned and sounded unhappy. No, it's not difficult to answer. Actually, we don't know either. We are acting under orders. As for what is inside, we don't know either. The Bone Emperor wasn't telling lies. Because he really doesn't know what is inside this black coffin. Only your majesty knows. Don't joke with me, it's not funny. Su Mu didn't believe their nonsense. As soon as these words came out, the Dark Emperor, who was standing behind the Bone Emperor, was so anxious that he took a deep breath and said directly, Senior, in fact, this is my father's body. Hearing these words, the other three emperors looked at the Dark Emperor in shock and gratitude. Dark Emperor, the organization will thank you for your efforts. In order to get through this, you even moved out your father who has been dead for thousands of years. Hearing this, Su Mu nodded. He didn't necessarily want to know what was in the coffin. He just wanted to know what they did by throwing the coffin into the river again and again. Since it is your father's body, why not let him rest in peace? Why did you throw the body into my river? Su Mu asked again. Hearing these words, the Dark Emperor was speechless for a moment. Yes, who would take the corpse down the river of time? A lie must be covered up by countless lies. Just when the Dark Emperor was hesitating and unable to explain the reason, Su Mu waved his hand and said, That's all, no need to explain. If you have to find a place for water burial, bury it downstream. Bury it far away. Don't bury it here because it will be an eyesore to me. As soon as these words came out, the four emperors were overjoyed. They originally planned to go to the lower reaches of the long river of time, and almost 7,000 years ago, it happened exactly as they wished. Although they don't know why this man is here and why he says that this river of time belongs to him, they don't think about it for the time being. They will find a way to get there first. They have been in the river of time for too long. The time on this long river is chaotic. You don't know how long it has been since your lord's main battlefield. If you miss the best period, it will be miserable. Therefore, we can no longer waste time on the long river of time. Thank you, Senior. Thank you, Senior. The fourth emperor quickly thanked him. But they discovered that as long as this man stood in front of them, the waters on this side would stop flowing. This kind of strength has gone beyond what they can imagine. It can stop the flow of the waters of the long river of time. What kind of state does it take to achieve this? Senior, could you please give way? The Bone Emperor forced out a smile and asked tentatively. You can, but you have to pay a fee. Su Mu said slowly. Let me do the math. As he spoke, Su Mu waved his hand, a piece of paper appeared in his hand, and he began to write and draw. The fourth emperor didn't dare to speak out. He didn't know what this man was doing. He didn't dare to move, didn't dare to speak, and didn't dare to ask. After settling the accounts, Su Mu raised his head and said to the four of them, let's do this. The four of you want to cross the river. In addition to the river crossing fee for the four of you, you also have to add the burial fee for this coffin. Since you are burying a dead person in water, taking into account security fees, management fees, mental damage fees, visual pollution fees, psychological compensation fees, etc., let's calculate it as 3 river crossing fees. How about this? Is this acceptable? As soon as these words came out, the 4 emperors were all dumbfounded and froze on the spot. What the hell? River crossing fee? When will the Changjiang River also charge river crossing tolls? How? Can't you accept it? Su Mu saw the 4 people's expressions were a little awkward and asked again. He can allow them to be buried in water and only charge 3 times the river crossing fee, which is already fair. Yes, I can accept it, of course I can accept it. It's just, why didn't you charge for it before? Why now? The Bone Emperor came to his senses immediately and asked quickly. In the past, everyone could travel through the river at will, why do they still charge for it now? The past was before, and the present is now. Now I guard this river and I have the final say. Now when you cross the river, you have to pay a crossing fee. Don't worry, don't get me wrong. I'm not targeting anyone, I'm targeting everyone crossing the river. As long as someone crosses the river, they have to pay the crossing fee. Su Mu is a fair person and will never engage in any special treatment or racial discrimination. Not to mention that a dead person has to pay a fee to cross the river. Even if a dog wants to cross the river today, it has to leave behind its legs. Then I would like to ask, how is this river crossing toll collected? The Bone Emperor was unsure, because this was the first time he had encountered such a thing. The long river had always been ownerless and everyone could cross it according to their own abilities. Who would have thought of paying the toll for crossing the river? Don't worry, I won't trick you. As a person, the most important thing for me is fairness. 4 of you, 1 crossing the river is a treasure. But for the funeral expenses of this dead man, 3 treasures must be paid. Speaking of this, Su Mu's eyes fell on the Dark Emperor and said, since this is your old father, you should pay for 3 treasures, plus your own, giving me a total of 4 treasures. Quote. As soon as these words came out, the Dark Emperor was dumbfounded. Ah, I bought 4 copies by myself. At this time, the other 3 emperors winked at the Dark Emperor and signaled him to take care of himself first, and the organization would definitely reimburse him. In order to appease the Dark Emperor's emotions, the Bone Emperor secretly sent a message. You will suffer some losses, so I will pay for it in advance. If you do something today, I will truthfully report it to your majesty. Your majesty will definitely not treat you badly. After hearing this message, the Dark Emperor's psychological imbalance eased slightly. However, the question arises, what kind of treasure is considered a treasure? The Bone Emperor suddenly realized this very serious question and asked, Senior, what treasure are you referring to? It's hard to understand. Treasures are the good things you have. But I'm warning you. I don't want your most valuable things, but don't treat me like a fool and try to fool me with some scraps of metal. Again, Su Mu is a relaxed person, more or less conscientious. Although it won't be so evil as to make you bankrupt, you must at least come up with a decent treasure. Although this sentence sounds simple, in the ears of the 4 emperors, the meaning contained in it is extraordinary. This sentence, translated in their minds, is, I am just being polite. If you don't bring out the best, see how I will deal with you. As the backbone, the Bone Emperor had to make a start first. There can be no further delay. He took out a purple leaf from his sleeve, handed it to Su Mu and said, Senior, do you think you are satisfied with this? After Su Mu watched the Bone Emperor twist and take out a leaf, he also looked up at the Bone Emperor in disbelief. Am I rough? Are you always so brave? Send me a leaf. Face writing output. Seeing that the man in front of him had an ugly expression, the Bone Emperor felt a pang in his heart. Ah! Isn't this enough? This is the cotyledon of the unbounded tree, and it is one of the most precious things that your majesty ever rewarded him with. This unbounded cotyledon contains an array of space rules. If you can penetrate it, you can understand a very small part of the space rules. Although there is only a trace, it is the power of the rules. Although he hasn't realized it yet, if you give him a certain amount of time, he will probably be able to try it successfully. This treasure can be regarded as one of his most precious treasures. Seeing the astonished expression on Bone Emperor's face, Su Mu still took the leaf and looked around. He found that although it was not an ordinary leaf, it didn't seem to be enough to call it a treasure, right? Let's just say it's half a piece. I'll study it myself when I get down. That's all, I'll give you half of it. Hearing these words, not only the Bone Emperor was dumbfounded. The other three emperors were also confused. Do you have such a high vision? Unbounded cotyledons can only be considered half a treasure. When they first knew that your majesty had rewarded the Bone Emperor for this boundless leaf, they were filled with envy. This is the power of rules in the legend. If you are lucky enough to understand it, even a little bit, it will be a great opportunity. They were already thinking in their minds what kind of treasure they would have to bring out to be considered a treasure, in this man's words. The Dark Emperor is already in despair and is about to be broken into pieces. They are one piece. But I have 4 pieces of TMD. He had begun to regret saying that the person lying in the coffin was his old father. The Bone Emperor saw that Su Mu had collected the unbounded leaf and said that it was only half a piece. His whole body was numb, completely numb, and his heart was bleeding. But he still endured it. In order to complete the task, he had to bleed heavily. There was no other way. If this terrifying man gets desperate and throws them into the river of time, it will be really doomed. Falling out. Falling out is impossible. Let's not talk about whether they can beat this man together. Just because of the long river of time and the fog of time all around, they don't dare to take action. Tolerate. I endure it. As long as you can successfully complete the task, your majesty will definitely not treat you badly. Why are you standing there? There's still half of it left. Seeing that he was dumbfounded again, Su Mu urged him. Bone Emperor really wanted to call the police, but maybe the call was dialed and it was Su Mu's voice that came through. The Wuji cotyledons are only half a treasure, and the river crossing fee is too expensive. He fumbled and struggled for a long time, and reluctantly took out a small purple-black bottle. It looked a bit like a vase, but the mouth of the bottle was very small, and the bottle body was about as big as 2 palms. Looking inside from the mouth of the bottle, it was pitch black, like an abyss. Seeing the Bone Emperor holding the vase, Su Mu approached and took it over. Bring it to you. After getting it, Su Mu looked at it carefully and found that it was a good magic weapon, probably half a piece. After putting away the vase, Su Mu showed a smile and said, "Okay, your river crossing fee has been paid. It's your turn, 3. After saying that, Su Mu looked at the 3 emperors behind the Bone Emperor, showing a harmless smile. The Bone Emperor wants to cry but has no tears. This eternal pure bottle is one of his natal magic weapons. When the other 3 emperors saw that the Bone Emperor had even taken out his natal magic weapon and the eternal pure bottle, they felt a lot of pressure. With the Bone Emperor's standards, they had to bring out similar magic weapons, at least not too much difference. Wandi took out a piece of blood-colored flesh-like thing from his cuff. It was a big lump, and it was still bouncy when he put it in his hand. It looked like a bloody tai sui. After seeing this thing, Su Mu's eyes lit up, because he felt a majestic power of blood and chi from this fleshy thing that resembled blood tai sui. It looked like a great tonic. When Wandi took out all the Shang Shui Fei, he was also stunned. Ah! Is Emperor Huan playing such a big role? This is his darling. Back then, he had narrowly escaped death and snatched this piece of sad blood fetus back from the ancient secret realm. Because of this piece of morning blood fetus, he had been hunted by several immortal kings for a long time. If His Majesty hadn't come forward to save him, he would have been killed long ago. Kill those immortal kings. This piece of blood-stained fetus originally weighed 10 kilograms, but he had used it for thousands of years without even using 2 kilograms. The three of them had begged for a long time, but Emperor Wandi refused to give out a little bit, so now they took it out directly. This is not like him, bleeding so much. In fact, Emperor Huan really didn't want to take out the Shang Shui Fei. Because he is a very cautious person and does not carry any treasures with him when he goes out. He only carries a life-saving magic weapon with him. Afraid of something happening and giving others an advantage. Because he wanted to use this piece of blood-stained fetus for cultivation, he carried it with him everywhere. It's impossible for him to take out his natal magic weapon. Unlike the Bone Emperor, he has several natal magic weapons with him. Therefore, we can only take this bloody fetus. Su Mu took the blood Tai Sui over and weighed it in his hands. It was quite heavy. Okay, this can be counted as one thing. Su Mu didn't want to embarrass him too much. He looked like he was about to cry. Emperor Huan really wanted to cry. He never thought that one day he would be so humble and be blackmailed and robbed in the long river of time. Let alone him, even if he came up, he would probably have to hand over something honestly. There is no way some good person would come up the river of time to rob. I guess no one would believe this if I told him. Okay, you two are left. Su Mu's eyes fell on Nan Emperor and an Emperor again. Nan Di took a deep breath, gritted his teeth and took out 3 treasures at once, which were a piece of blue jade, a red rope, and a piece of skin, a bit like tiger skin, with spots all over it. Su Mu looked around briefly and found that they were all treasures, so he collected them all and studied them carefully after a while. Finally, Su Mu smiled at the last Dark Emperor and said, "You are the only one left now." "Oh, no, there's also your dad." He pointed to the coffin at his feet. The Dark Emperor closed his eyes, his chest heaved and his eyelids trembled slightly. Finally, perhaps having made up his mind, he suddenly opened his eyes, took off the space ring from his hand, handed it to Su Mu and said, "All my things are here." He only kept 2 of his natal magic weapons, and gave away all the others. Su Mu took the space ring and took a look at it. There were many treasures in it, including elixirs, spiritual stones, and some weird treasures that he didn't know what they were. The Dark Emperor is not like the other 3 emperors. He is a casual cultivator and does not have many treasures on him. Most of them are used for training or damaged in battles. The boss is awesome. Su Mu took away the space ring. Okay, the river crossing fee is paid in full. After that, Su Mu made way for the 4 emperors, and with a wave of his hand, he lifted the ban on the water area. When they saw this man being so relaxed and able to influence the flow of time with just a raise of his hand, they swallowed unconsciously, their hearts in their throats. Be safe and find a good place to bury your father. Be careful, you have to fix it when you bury it. Don't let it float around on the river. If I see it, I will take action. Su Mu warned the Dark Emperor. Although he agreed that the other party should be buried in his river, he had to bury it properly and secure it. He didn't want to see a big black coffin floating around in front of his eyes. Of course. The Dark Emperor nodded like a chicken pecking at rice. After seeing Su Mu's terrifying strength, he had no resistance at all. Fortunately, I paid the river crossing fee honestly from the beginning instead of rebelling. If a fight breaks out, I'm afraid they will become 4 floating corpses in the long river of time and become the nourishment of the long river of time. After Su Mu made way, the 4 emperors still did not dare to leave and kept staring at Su Mu. They were really scared. Seeing this, Su Mu waved his hand, "I'll give you a ride." After that, Su Mu used his magical power to control water, controlling the water under the coffin to accelerate. With a direct ejection, the coffin rushed directly downstream. The 4 emperors were so frightened that they hugged each other tightly, fearing that they would accidentally fall down. In order to prevent them from being too close to the water burial coffin and disturbing his eyes, Su Mu simply sent them further away, very far downstream. Soon, the 4 of them disappeared directly from his sight. After doing all this, the system's announcement sounded. Congratulations to the host, you have maintained the order on the river, triggered additional rewards, favor points plus 9,000. After hearing that 9,000 favor points had been received, Su Mu's eyes widened and he was overjoyed. My dear, you can still make money quickly like this. More people crossing the river like this, or more people making trouble? Is it more than that? Where did this get us? When the four emperors came back to their senses, they found that they had arrived at a very strange place. The fourth emperor looked at the desolate surroundings. At a glance, he could only see the gray earth and the dense stone mountains. At this time, the Bone Emperor had an ominous premonition, and his consciousness spread. When he noticed something, his pupils shrank sharply. It's over, that man sent us somewhere. Within a radius of 1 billion kilometers, there is no breath of life. Hearing this sentence, the other three emperors also quickly opened their spiritual consciousness. After carefully examining it, panic appeared on their faces. According to the normal process, they traveled back to 7,000 years ago, and only needed to travel a few kilometers on the long river of time. But after the man accelerated them, they rode the black coffin and rushed downstream for an unknown distance. The powerful turbulence of time caused them to fall into a coma, and they had no idea what time or space they were sent to. Coming. Even with their consciousness fully open, they can't feel the breath of any living being. Did this horse travel to the beginning of Pengu's creation of heaven and earth? Huh. Where's the black coffin? Only then did the four emperors realize that the black coffin was no longer around. Quick! We will search separately from 4 directions, and we will meet here again in an hour. As soon as he finished speaking, the 4 emperors turned into streams of light and rushed towards the 4 directions of southeast, northwest and northwest. An hour later, the 4 emperors returned to the place empty-handed. Not found. Me too. I've searched for hundreds of millions of kilometers, but I haven't found it at all. The Bone Emperor sat down on the ground and murmured, "It's all over now. The black coffin probably fell to a certain time and space. We don't know what time and space we were sent to. Now that the black coffin is gone, that is, the tree of time is gone, we probably won't be able to go back." As soon as these words came out, the eyes of the other 3 emperors went dark and their legs became a little weak. The black coffin is lost, and I don't know what time and space I am in. Let alone completing the mission of your majesty, I can't go back now. A gust of wind blew up the waste sand on the ground. The 4 emperors' faces were stiff, their expressions were dull, and they completely lost hope. This is more uncomfortable and more desperate than trapping them in the Black Central Realm. Trapped in the Black Central Realm, they at least know where they are, and at least they can expect the Lord to rescue them. Well now, the time is wrong and the space is wrong. Even if they are as strong as your majesty, it is impossible to deduce what time and space they are in, let alone find them. The Bone Emperor, who had always been calm and collected, was completely confused now. If the black coffin was not lost, they would travel through the river of time again after resting. But now, without the most important, tree of time, as a river crossing medium, they have no way to go on the long river of time. Things like the tree of time are rare in the world. Finding them depends entirely on luck. They were able to travel through time before because they borrowed the tree of time from their predecessors. In this place, let alone trees, not even a single blade of grass can be seen. If the tree of time did not exist in this world, then they would be trapped here forever, only to grow old and die. In this way, the 4 emperors sat here for 3 days and 3 nights, unable to think of any solution. Bone Emperor, I think there is only one way. This place must have been thousands of years ago. Why don't we wait for the passage of time and live on the normal timeline? Nandi, who had been silent for a long time, spoke up. As soon as these words came out, the Bone Emperor smiled bitterly and said, "How can you be sure that this is thousands of years ago? It's no problem to live for thousands of years. We can retreat and endure it for a while. But, what if this was tens of thousands of years ago, hundreds of thousands of years ago, or even longer? Do you think we are destined to live to hundreds of thousands of years? Also, how are you sure this world is our original world? You have to think clearly, not only are we in the wrong time, but we are also in the wrong space." After hearing these words, Nandi fell into despair again. Yes, if they only traveled back 7,000 years, even if they lost the black coffin, it would not be a big problem. After enduring it for a while, until 7,000 years ago, we will return to the normal timeline. But the problem now is that this is definitely not as simple as 7,000 years. They have traveled so far on the river of time, and it is estimated that it is possible in 700,000 years. 700,000 years. What a long time this is. They are just immortals, not immortal kings, let alone immortal emperors, and they cannot live for such a long time. Even if the immortal emperor comes, 700,000 years will be enough to drive any immortal emperor crazy. This 700,000 years is still a conservative estimate. What if it takes longer? They no longer dare to think about it anymore, and the more they think about it, the more desperate they become. The only way now is to find the Tree of Time. The Bone Emperor stood up and looked into the distance with a complicated expression. However, the Tree of Time is rare, and this world is still barren. The Dark Emperor said in despair. This is the only way. Emperor Huan said. The Bone Emperor cut his finger and dripped a drop of his blood to the ground. We'll use this as a rendezvous point. We search from 4 different directions and gather together once 100 years. 100 years are here, no matter whether you find it or not, you have to come back here. After that, the other 3 emperors also cut their fingers and left their own blood here for marking. 4 blood marks appeared on the ground. These were blood marks left to prevent them from getting separated, because this world is really too big. If after a few years, whose blood mark disappears, it means that the person has fallen. If 100 years later, when you gather here again, you find that my blood mark has disappeared, it will prove that I have fallen. Then, don't give up. As long as one of the 4 of us survives, we can leave here, go find the black coffin, and complete your mission. The Bone Emperor warned the other 3 emperors word by word. The 4 blood marks left behind not only represent the meeting point, but also represent whether they are still alive. Let's go. We don't have much time. We can't waste a minute. After saying that, the Bone Emperor faced the north, tore apart the space in the next second, and started looking for the legendary Tree of Time from the north. The other 3 emperors went to the east, south, and west directions respectively. Time flies, and hundreds of years fly by in a blink of an eye. When the 4 emperors gathered together again, they looked much older. In just 100 years, the Bone Emperor had a lot of gray hair on his head. This shows how many things he has experienced in this 100 years. Seeing that the 4 of them were all empty-handed, they all understood that they had not found the Tree of Time. The 4 emperors didn't say anything more, they just nodded to each other, then turned around and continued looking. Time is like a torrent, turbulent and ruthless, always swallowing up years and rings inadvertently. I don't know how long time has passed, but the place where the 4 emperors left their blood marks has been turned into a forbidden area, and a stone temple has been erected. The originally barren land is now covered with vegetation, and the barren mountains and rocks have turned into green hills. There are more birds and beasts in the sky, and many crawling beasts can be seen on the earth. In such an environment, the stone palace seemed very abrupt, like a pearl in the night and a wasteland in the green. On this day, several young human race girls, dressed in luxurious clothes, came to the most dangerous forbidden area in the Central Territory, called the 4 Emperors Forbidden Area. Walking at the front was a slightly burly young man in brocade robes. He held a green sword and cleared the thorns on the road, killing many ferocious beasts that blocked the road. Following the young man were 2 girls. One was wearing a long yellow dress. She was about 17 years old. She had a beautiful appearance, curved eyebrows, twin ponytails, and 2 small dimples when she smiled. She was playful. With some cuteness. The girl in the yellow skirt is holding the arm of a woman in Xingyi, wearing a clean and simple Xingyi. She is older, in her 20s, with skin as smooth as cream, beautiful eyes as green as amber, and extraordinary temperament. If you look closely, you will see that the auras of these 3 people are powerful, and the one with the strongest cultivation is the woman in green, who has reached the terrifying 3rd level of golden core. The girl in the yellow dress who was looking around curiously at the side had also reached the foundation building perfection state. The burly young man who was leading the way had reached the 1st level of the golden core. At such an age, they have reached such a level of cultivation, which shows that these 3 people are the top talents in this world. At this time, the girl in yellow skirt asked the woman in green, Sister Yer, why is this place called the Forbidden Land of the 4 Emperors? It was her first time traveling far away, so she didn't know much about many things in the outside world. This time she went out to practice with her senior brothers and sisters, but she also ran out secretly behind her master's back. After finishing her words, a look of reminiscence appeared on the face of the woman in green clothes, and she murmured, "Actually, I'm not very clear either. My master told me that his master is also my master. When my master followed other ancestors to this continent, the forbidden land of the four emperors already existed. There are many legends about the forbidden areas of the four emperors. The most credible theory is that this continent experienced a terrible war before they came, causing all living things on the continent to disappear and become a wasteland. The forbidden land of the four emperors is actually the cave of the four powerful emperors. There is a legend that the four emperors are still alive and will come to these forbidden places for meetings every 100 years. Speaking of which, the burly young man who was leading the way also turned around and interjected, Senior Sister Yi is right. As long as the forbidden land of the four emperors reaches every 100 years, it will turn into a forbidden area of death. Divine thunder will roll in the void, and all creatures in the forbidden area will flee. The legend is due to the four emperors meeting and talking every 100 years. Some powerful people have seen it from a distance. It is said that the four emperors gathered here from the four directions of southeast, northwest and northwest. But, Junior Sister Huang, don't worry. I have read through the ancient books before coming here. It has only been 50 years since the last meeting of the four emperors. That is, for the next 50 years, the forbidden areas of the four emperors will be safe. In order to ensure the safety of his junior sister, Song Zian read a large number of ancient books about the forbidden areas of the four emperors before coming here to ensure that there was no danger before he dared to come here. Huang Yingying nodded thoughtfully, and then asked, then why do the four powerful emperors have to gather once 100 years? In fact, this question is not only curious to Huang Yingying, but also to countless monks in this continent. Well, I don't know either. Although Song Zian consulted many ancient books, there was no record in the ancient books why the four emperors gathered together every 100 years. At this time, Yi Qingran opened her lips lightly and said, they should be looking for something. I once saw in several unofficial histories that there were four most powerful men traveling around the continent. The distant Sea of Bones, the wasteland of entropy in the far north, the plain of darkness in the far south, and other places all existed. Traces of the strongest. I guess those four most powerful people are the legendary four emperors. Yi Qingran has been fond of studying some ancient books and legends since she was a child. When she was only 7 or 8 years old, she read strange texts and records all day long. When she first learned about the legend of the four emperors, Forbidden Land, she was obsessed with it for a long time. Later, she also consulted a large number of ancient books and information. The more I checked, the more frightened I became, because the legends about the four emperors can even be traced back to 50,000 years ago. When Master Zeng founded the Daogu Shen sect, it was only 10,000 years ago. I can't imagine what a long time 50,000 years is. After 50,000 years of searching, what are they looking for? In fact, Yi Qingran has always wanted to know. Suddenly, the entire four emperors' forbidden land began to shake, and powerful pressure began to descend. The three of them looked shocked. Song Zian waved his hand, tightened the sword in his hand, and said to the two women, let's leave. After that, the three of them fled towards the outside of the forbidden area without any hesitation. It's a pity that they only escaped a few thousand meters away when several extremely powerful pressures descended on the forbidden area in an instant. The next second, four standing figures appeared on the forbidden area, but they were wrapped in dark clouds and divine thunder, and their faces could not be seen clearly. After seeing these four figures, the three people's pupils shrank sharply, looking up into the void, and their whole bodies were stiff and did not dare to move. Could this be the four emperors? It seems that the legend is true. But why did it come 50 years in advance? Yi Qingran raised his head and looked at the four figures in the void, feeling a little excited. Could it be that they found what they wanted to find? At this moment, he didn't know where the courage came from, and he asked the four figures, four seniors, may I ask, are you looking for something? If possible, I can also help you find it. As soon as these words came out, the other two people also looked at Yi Qingran in shock. They did not expect that senior sister Yi would dare to talk to the four emperors. In fact, Yi Qingran was also very scared, but her curiosity defeated her reason. It was like a mystery that had troubled her for many years was close at hand, and she wanted to know the truth of the matter. Another more important reason is that if the four emperors are really looking for something, she can ask the master to use the power of the Daogu Shenzong to help them find it together. In this case, there may even be a chance to win over these four supreme experts to join Daogu Shenzong. After a long time, the four figures in the void were unmoved, as if in their eyes, Yi Qingran and others were just ants on the ground and were not qualified to talk to them. However, after a while, a vicissitudes of voice came. No need, we have found it. Perhaps because they heard Yi Qingran's kindness, that vicissitudes of voice did not embarrass them. At this time, two powerful figures rushed into the forbidden area, came to Yi Qingran's side, and stood in front of them. Master, why are you here? Yi Qingran was also surprised when he saw the visitor. Unexpectedly, the masters who have been in seclusion for thousands of years are here. At this time, the master did not answer Yi Qingran's words, but knelt down towards a certain figure in the void. Junior Li Changtan, pay your respects to the ancestor. As soon as these words came out, Yi Qingran and others' eyes widened. Ancestor. The next second, a figure with gray hair and a slightly stooped figure stepped out of the dark clouds and looked down at everyone. This rickety figure is the Bone Emperor 50,000 years later. He looked at Li Changqin, with a look of reminiscence on his face, and asked, are you a descendant of the Daogu Shenzong? Going back to our ancestors, this junior is the 37th generation leader of the Daogu Shen sect. Hearing these words, the Bone Emperor was also sighing. It turned out that it had been so long, and the Daogu Shen sect that he had founded had reached the 37th generation. Juniors have never forgotten the ancient teachings of the Daogu Shenzong. Over the past 10,000 years, the Daogu Shenzong has been looking for the Tree of Time. But I haven't found it yet. Please forgive me, the ancestor. Hearing these words, Yi Qingran's beautiful eyes were startled, and all the confusion suddenly became clear at this moment. She is a saint of the Daogu Shen sect, and of course she knows some of the secrets of the Daogu Shen sect. The only ancient motto of the Daogu Shenzong is to look for the legendary Tree of Time. What she didn't expect was that one of the four emperors was actually the founder of their Daogu Shen sect, and she didn't expect that what the four emperors were looking for was also the Tree of Time. I don't blame you. Now I have found the Tree of Time. I will leave this world and leave the Daogu Shen sect to you. The Bone Emperor showed a smile. This was the first time he had shown a smile in so many years. Maybe it was because he had found the Wood of Time, or maybe it was because they could finally leave here. Congratulations to the ancestor. Li Changqin knelt down and worshipped, and the rest of the people also knelt down and worshipped. Are the ancestors ready to take revenge? The Daogu Shenzong is willing to go with the ancestor and go through fire and water for the ancestor. Li Changqin knew that the ancestor was not from this continent, but seemed to have been exiled here by some powerful being. No need. If you go, you will be just cannon fodder. Nothing will change. What's more, I'm not going here for revenge, but to do a more important thing. The Bone Emperor smiled. Revenge. He did not hate the powerful man on the River of Time. On the contrary, the Bone Emperor was very grateful to him. If he hadn't exiled them to this time and space by mistake, perhaps they would never be able to come into contact with the immortal King realm in their lifetime. 50,000 years of searching, 50,000 years of cultivation. They have received a lot of opportunities in this time and space, and now they have reached the threshold of the immortal king. Now that the Tree of Time has been found, we can leave. But Li Changqin didn't understand. Didn't the ancestor search for the Tree of Time to seek revenge? You have to remember. This world is much bigger and broader than you think. Never be arrogant and complacent, never feel like you are invincible. You, including me, will always be just ants in the eyes of those supreme beings. You must learn to be respectful. The former Bone Emperor was also a very proud person. Since meeting the mysterious man on the River of Time, his pride has also disappeared, he has become extremely low-key, and learned to be in awe. Awe, not fear. This is a kind of wisdom. Shouldn't one be in awe of an existence that affects the flow of the long river of time with a wave of his hand, and transports them to a time and space countless years ago with a wave of his hand? What's more, since he was a blessing in disguise, he shouldn't harbor such revenge.
After hearing these words, several people were stunned for a moment, as if they had realized something. The leader, Li Changqin, asked again, Ancestor, please leave this world. How can we find you and follow your footsteps? Hearing this, the Bone Emperor was silent for a while. In fact, he could have killed their hopes directly and stopped them from looking for him, but if he thought about it carefully, he should leave some hope in everything. During these 50,000 years, he relied solely on the word, hope, to persist. If he hadn't always had hope, he might have given up long ago, turned into a pile of loess, and been buried in this world forever. If you really want to find me, if you can really practice to that day, you will have the ability to set foot in a place called the River of Time, and go up the River of Time. But you may meet a man. You must be prepared to pay the river crossing fee, and do not conflict with him. You must respect and fear him. Because that man is the one who exiled me to this world, but he is not my enemy, let alone your enemy. Speaking of this, the Bone Emperor paused. You should regard him as your benefactor. If it weren't for him, I wouldn't be here, and there wouldn't be the Daogu Shen sect. After all, he is too your ancestor. When you see him, you have to call him ancestor. In fact, there is no need to say so much about the Bone Emperor. Because if you travel through the long river of time, you must at least reach the heavenly immortal realm. The entire Daogu divine sect can only have one person who can transcend the tribulation realm, which is probably the limit. But what if? What if one day in the future, the Daogu Shen sect really produces an immortal? That's not even certain. After finishing speaking, the Bone Emperor waved his hand, and a purple-black wooden board flew out of his sleeves and landed in front of Li Changqin. This is an extra piece of time wood. You must remember that to travel through the long river of time, the tree of time is indispensable. However, this piece of time wood can only hold one person. If a destined person, the strongest person, is born in the Daogu Shenzong in the future, and is willing to pursue me, then leave this tree of time to him. Hearing this, Li Changqin carefully put away the tree of time. Okay, time is running out. You guys can leave, I'm leaving soon too. Every word I just said, I hope you will keep it in mind. Bone Emperor said. Every word spoken by the ancestor will become the ancient teachings of the Daogu Shen sect and will be passed down until the person with the strongest destiny as mentioned by the ancestor appears and the tree of time is handed over to him. Li Changqin answered word for word. Let's go, no more words. The Bone Emperor waved his hand at everyone, and the next second the space fluctuated, and in an instant they were sent out of the forbidden area. At this moment, Yi Qingran, who was standing behind Li Changqin, was looking at the forbidden land in front of him, in a daze. The ancestor's words touched her heart. Isn't practicing Taoism just to see a broader world? An ambition grew in her heart. If Daogu Shenzong wants to produce a person of destiny, why can't it be her? Even if she is not destined to be her, she will still work hard to become the strongest person in the Daogu Shen sect. She will ride on the tree of time to go to the long river of time mentioned by the ancestor, and see the wider world. And, she also wanted to see with her own eyes the other ancestor, who exiled the ancestor to this world. Shaoran, it's time to go. The master's voice came, bringing Yi Qingran's thoughts back to reality. She slowly turned around and said to the master, Master, I have thought about it. I want to go to Daogu Tianqi for retreat. As soon as these words came out, Song Xian and Huang Yingying next to them showed shocked expressions. There is a Tianqi forbidden land in the small inner enchantment world of Daogu Shenzong. This Tianqi forbidden land was where the founder of the sect lifted the entire Tianqi Holy Island from the endless South Territory and brought it back to the sect. It is said that the ancestor lifted the entire Tianqi Holy Island across the endless void and returned to the Daogu Shenzong. Then he set up a space barrier within the Shenzong and put the Tianqi Holy Island into the space barrier. Since then, the secret realm of Tianqi Holy Island, which is famous on the mainland and has attracted countless people, has become the private secret realm of Daogu Shenzong, and has since been renamed Daogu Tianqi. However, the ancestor lifted up the entire Tianqi Holy Island, so the ferocious beasts that originally lived on the Tianqi Holy Island and some extremely dangerous places have also been preserved. Over the years, only the most outstanding and talented disciples of the Daogu Shen sect have been qualified to enter the Daogu Tianqi for retreat and experience.
The 8th, 9th, and 11th generation leaders of the Daogu Shen sect once practiced in seclusion in Daogu Tianqi for hundreds of years. They received great opportunities and sang songs all the way. From a little the outer disciple has grown up to be the master of the Shen sect. Later, many people in the Shenzong also got opportunities. Some left the Shenzong and became giants on the mainland, and some became elders of the Shenzong, preaching and imparting knowledge to the world. In short, Daogu Tianqi is one of the most important secret realms of Daogu Shenzong. However, powerful opportunities are often accompanied by extreme dangers. Over the years, the mortality rate of Shenzong disciples who have entered Daogu Tianqi for training has been horribly high. Among them, the most terrifying thing was the time 1,000 years ago, when 10 core disciples who were given high hopes entered Daogu Tianqi for training at the same time. The entire army was wiped out, and no one survived. That time brought a huge blow to the Daogu Shen sect. The 10 core disciples, who had devoted hundreds of years of hard work, all died like this. Therefore, those 100 years were the most difficult 100 years for the Daogu Shen sect. Because all the best young generations died, those 100 years were ridiculed by other sects. In those 100 years, in all the battles, competitions, etc. held by the younger generation on the mainland, there was no trace of the Daogu Shenzong. After a full 100 years of relaxation, when the next group of disciples grew up, the younger generation of Daogu Shenzong returned to the stage of the times. Therefore, from then on, the top leaders of Daogu Shenzong no longer relied too much on Daogu Tianqi to cultivate disciples, and the assessment for entering Daogu Tianqi also increased a very high threshold. When Yi Qingran said he was going to Tianqi, everyone had such a big reaction. Li Chengqin also frowned and asked, "Have you really thought about it?" "Back to master, I want to give it a try." The words of the ancestor just now completely touched her. The world is very vast, and she also hopes that one day in the future, she can leave this continent and go to a higher world. Therefore, she must make efforts that ordinary people cannot bear and challenge dangers that ordinary people dare not face. Now that you have decided, go ahead and try it. Although Li Chengqin has been in seclusion for many years, he still knows about Yi Qingran, a newly promoted saint. She has already set foot in the golden elixir at a young age, and her future is limitless. Let's go. The stone palace in the forbidden area of the 4 emperors. The 4 emperors sat around the square stone table. They all looked at each other and saw the traces of time on each other. Yes, 50,000 years have passed now. They didn't expect that they would be trapped in this world for tens of thousands of years. I still remember that when they first came to this continent, it was still a deserted place, with no living beings to be seen. Later, they found out that before they came, a shocking war took place on this continent. Later, with tens of thousands of years of development, the continent gradually regained its vitality. Many human monks migrated to the continents next to the endless sea. Over time, this continent slowly changed from desolation to prosperity. We gathered together every 100 years, and now I don't know how many 100 years have passed. Finally, 100 years later, they finally found the legendary Tree of Time. Bone Emperor, Dark Emperor, Huan Emperor, and Southern Emperor. At this moment, although their appearance is much older than that of 50,000 years ago, their aura is stronger. The Bone Emperor is now the great perfection of heavenly immortals. The Dark Emperor is a 9-realm heavenly immortal, the Huan Emperor is an 8-realm heavenly immortal, and the Southern Emperor is an 8-realm heavenly immortal. They never thought that one day they would be able to reach the Supreme Immortal King realm. The Heavenly Immortal realm and the Immortal King realm seem to be only one big difference apart, but the gap between them is like a chasm. A monk who can achieve the Immortal King realm requires not only unparalleled talent, but also the most important thing is heavenly luck. Throughout the eternity of the world, people with powerful talents are like crucian carp crossing the river. But most of them can only go as far as transcending tribulation, and even ascending is out of reach. They are still thousands of miles away from the immortals, let alone the Supreme Immortal King. Of the 4 of them, none of them had once suppressed the geniuses of the era, but in the end they stopped at being immortals and never expected to challenge the Immortal King. But now, they are actually qualified to attack the Immortal King. This is something they never imagined, and all of this is because of the man who has been guarding the river for a long time. Therefore, They no longer hate the man, but are very grateful to him. Bone Emperor, so much time has passed now. I'm afraid it's already too late for your majesty's mission. The Dark Emperor sighed. It's too late. The mission has been considered a failure and it has failed to live up to your majesty's expectations. There is no way, we have tried our best. However, as long as we work hard to attack the Immortal King realm and support the main battlefield, it may be more effective. The Bone Emperor murmured. Yes, one day we can hope to attack the Immortal King. It really seems like a dream. Emperor Huan sighed. We have almost taken all the opportunities in this continent. If we continue to stay here, we may not be able to make a breakthrough. We have found the Tree of Time, and it's time to set foot on the River of Time again. The Bone Emperor waved his hand, and a large piece of time wood appeared in his hand. With his thoughts, this large piece of time wood turned into a large ship, 2 meters high and 10 meters long. Are you ready for the toll for crossing the river this time? The Bone Emperor suddenly thought of something and asked the other 3 emperors. Everything is ready. Over the years, I have met some better treasures, and I kept them all just for this day to be able to set foot on the long river of time again, as a toll for crossing the river. Me too, all the treasures are ready. Of course I'm ready. The 3 emperors replied. Now that 50,000 years have passed, I wonder if that senior is still in the flow of time. For some reason, Bone Emperor suddenly looked forward to meeting that senior again. Have you finished all your matters? The Bone Emperor asked the other 3. Because not only he founded the Daoshan Shen sect, but the other 3 emperors also established sects. They are Dark Yan Demon Palace, Nanfen Shen sect, and Wanzhou Shen sect. The 4 sects founded by the 4 of them are now standing at the top of the pyramid on this continent. They were all established 10,000 years ago. In just 10,000 years, these 4 sects became the 4 major holy places and top divine sects in this continent. The purpose of their establishment of the sect is also to let the sect help find the Tree of Time. Although they are very powerful, sometimes the Tree of Time cannot be found by strength alone. It depends on luck. Therefore, the more people searching, the greater the opportunities. Just like this piece of time wood, it was picked up by an ordinary outer sect servant disciple of Dark Yan Demon Palace in an ordinary cemetery, handed over to the sect, and finally came into the hands of the 4 emperors. Sometimes it is like this, without that luck, you will never find it. My Southern Burning God sect, before coming here, everything that needs to be explained has been explained. Nandi replied. I have already explained the Wanzhou Divine sect and left a little chance. Huandi said slowly. The outer disciple who helped us find the Tree of Time, I gave him part of the inheritance. However, his talent is quite good. He has a very rare Shura demon body and is a natural son of a demon cultivator. Coupled with my inheritance, his future achievements will not be low, and there is a high chance that he will ascend and leave this world. The Dark Emperor said word by word. Normally, if he didn't have such a talent, he wouldn't have found the Tree of Time. People with strong talents are often accompanied by strong luck. Emperor Huan said slowly. What's the name of that outer disciple? Hearing this, the Bone Emperor also became interested. After all, if it weren't for this outer disciple, we don't know when we would have found the Tree of Time. Su Ming, Dark Emperor replied. This was the only name in the entire Dark Yan Demon Palace that impressed him. Su Ming. The 3rd Emperor also wrote down this name. It's not like you to actually leave your own inheritance to him. Bone Emperor smiled. He has a somewhat withdrawn personality. Although he is young, he has an extraordinary state of mind. Calm, ruthless, calm, clear, these are all qualities I admire very much. I let him choose whether to choose the treasures rewarded to him by the 4 of us, or to choose my inheritance. Because if he wants a part of my inheritance, he must endure the great grief and pain in the world and continue to practice. During this period, there is a high chance that he will die. He must be reborn step by step from the fire of desire before he can complete it. He surprised me and I was pleasantly surprised. I chose the latter without any hesitation. Hearing what the Dark Emperor said, the other 3 people also looked at him in surprise. They had rarely heard the Dark Emperor appreciate a person so much and give such a high evaluation. To be honest, I left a small piece of the wood of time and gave it to him. The Dark Emperor said. Hearing this, the 3 of them looked surprised. The Bone Emperor smiled and said, You don't think that one day he will be able to step into the long river of time, right? His starting point is too low. What if? Although he has just started cultivating immortals and has a very low starting point, what if he really has that day? It's like, we have been looking for the wood of time for tens of thousands of years, but he, an ordinary mortal, picked it up. Who could have predicted this? The Dark Emperor's words also made the Third Emperor stunned for a moment and then smiled. Okay, now that everything has been explained, it's time for us to go. The Bone Emperor stood up and said to the other three emperors. The next second, the Third Emperor stood up and nodded, with a hint of fairy light in his eyes. 50,000 years later, they were very nervous and excited as they stepped onto the long river of time again. Then, let's go. Having said that, the four emperors rose into the sky, and a powerful fairy light burst out instantly, overflowing with a trace of breath and causing cracks to appear on the earth with a radius of tens of millions of kilometers. At this moment, Li Changqin, Yi Qingran and others, who were thousands of kilometers away, also stopped, turned around and looked up at the void on the horizon. Although they could not follow him or get close, they could watch the ancestor leave from a distance. I saw several powerful figures standing in the void above the sky, like the Dharma of heaven and earth, reflected in the black clouds, powerful and mysterious. No one knew that the four strongest men who dominated this continent would cross the long river of time and leave this world. Not to mention that no one knows that the most glorious and powerful Shenzong in this continent was founded by these four figures. And all of this was only because of a man on the long river of time. With a wave of his hand, he changed the fate of four strong men and also changed the pattern of the world. This also confirms a sentence. A leaf in history, falling on ordinary people, is an unbearable mountain. A wave in the long river of time may herald the glory of a world or the fall of a world. The fourth emperor lowered his head and took one last look at the world that had trapped them for 50,000 years. Perhaps for a moment, he felt a little nostalgic. They withdrew their gaze and looked up into the void. The next second, it turned into a stream of light and submerged into the void, heading towards the legendary River of Time, the River of Time that had made them wait for 50,000 years. At this moment, there is another side of time and space. On the bank of the Time River, stood a slender young man. He was wearing a green and white immortal robe, with a powerful aura, just like a banished immortal, standing quietly. He was seen holding a bamboo pole and staring intently at his homemade float on the river. Perhaps because he was tired from standing, the young man moved a big stone, sat cross-legged on the stone, and continued to stare at the floats on the river, not daring to move his eyes for a moment. As a senior fisherman, he understands it very well. Many fish are like having a god's perspective. They will catch you when you light a cigarette or go to the toilet. In short, as long as you take your eyes off the float, they will catch you right away. Come on, a big black guy. His goal today is to catch a treasure fish. After staring for a long time, Sumu closed his eyes and yawned. His eyes only left for a second. The float floating on the river disappeared immediately. Hold the grass. Suemu's veins popped out, and when he raised his hand, his face turned red. Holy crap, what did you catch? Why is it so heavy? Sumu stood back and lifted it hard, and a huge silver carp was instantly lifted out of the water. This silver carp has faint blue eyes and fine purple gold scales on the fish's body arranged in rows and rows. Especially its tail, which is not like an ordinary fish tail, but like a pair of scissors, glowing with sparkling light. Seeing this, Suemu's eyes lit up. This is a treasure fish. He had been fishing for several days and finally caught a big fish. Sumu flicked his arm hard, and the huge silver carp was instantly thrown to the river bank. He put down the fishing rod and hurriedly walked towards the silver carp. He clamped the silver carp's gills with his thumb and index finger. After lifting it up, he weighed it and found that the fish was unusually heavy. No wonder it was so hard for him. Sumu was no longer surprised by the weight of this kind of treasure fish, because he gradually felt that this river was not simple. There were so many treasure fish. At the same time, a certain world. It has been 10 years since Xiao Huo came to this world. In his 20s, he was already a big boss. On this day, he followed the guidance of Grandpa Ring and other seniors to the secret realm of Qianyuan. At this moment, a terrifying battle is taking place in Xiuan, the center of the hidden abyss secret realm, with big bosses from all parties competing for the treasures located above Xiuan. The treasure couldn't be seen clearly. It was wrapped in a ball of fairy light. From the powerful aura it emanated, it could be seen that this treasure must be one of the most precious secret treasures in the secret realm. Although Xiao Huo is already a big boss, of course he is not qualified to participate in a battle of this level and can only watch from a distance. Master, can you see clearly what kind of treasure this is? Xiao Huo asked via voice transmission to the space ring on his finger. This is his golden finger. No, it cannot be said to be a golden finger. This is his master, his noble person, who helped him rise step by step and reach where he is today. The soul in the space ring was silent for a while, and then a message came. I can't see clearly, but I suggest you not to interfere with it. Although I can't see clearly what kind of treasure this is, I always feel. No, it's so right. Hearing these words, Xiaohuo also smiled and said, Master, you think too highly of me. Even if I want to get involved, I don't have the strength to do so. It's definitely not possible with your current strength, but if I possess you, there is no problem in grabbing it, but I think it's a little weird, so we'll just wait and see this time. After hearing these words, Xiaohuo nodded in agreement. Everything is subject to Master's arrangements. At this moment, the four powerful men in this large area were fighting in full swing. Just the aftermath of the battle caused cracks in the ground and made other monks dare not approach. Suddenly, the sky suddenly darkened. At some point, black clouds appeared in the sky above Ishihara, spreading to the horizon and covering the entire secret realm. Immediately afterwards, an extremely strong pressure descended from the black clouds. In an instant, everyone was unable to move under this pressure, and was frozen in place as if they were petrified. They raised their heads with difficulty and looked at the black clouds in the void. Some of the weaker monks fainted on the spot under this powerful pressure. Xiaohuo also looked at the black clouds in the sky with a horrified look on his face, his pupils shrank sharply, and his face showed fear. The next second, a huge beast shadow appeared in the black clouds. This beast shadow is so big that it almost fills up the entire black cloud. Only part of the tail of the beast shadow can be seen. The shape is like two magic scissors. With a slight cut, a crack in space is directly cut. Everyone held their breath and looked at the terrifying beast. At this time, the four strong men and powerful men thought of something when they saw the shadow of the beast with its tail shaped like a god's scissor. Not only the four of them, but many other monks also remembered an ancient legend. According to legend, at the southern end of the continent, in the Sea of Nanch, there is a space-time coon beast. It has the ability to cut space and swim in space. In the cracks, he shuttles through the ancient secret realms in the continent, devouring humans and secret treasures. No one knows what the strength of that space-time coon beast is. But they knew that the old sword god from 800 years ago went to the Sea of Nanch alone in order to kill the space-time coon beast. Before he really set foot in the South Sea, the old sword god was devoured by the space-time coon beast. Let alone beheaded, he didn't even have the strength to fight. It was also because of that battle that the legend of the space-time coon beast was established. From then on, no one dared to approach the South Sea. Unexpectedly, after 800 years, they actually saw the space-time coon beast again. They didn't dare to move, and they couldn't move. A strong sense of despair spread in their hearts. Disciple, get ready. At this time, divine thoughts came from the space ring and reached Xiaohuo's mind. Xiaohuo performed the exercises, adjusted his state to the best state, and was ready to be possessed by the master at any time. He knew very well that once this space-time coon beast attacked, it would be impossible to escape with his strength, and he would have to rely on his master to possess him. Just when everyone was waiting for death to come, the space-time coon beast changed its direction and swallowed the treasure that was emitting fairy light above the stone plain. This bite directly swallowed up the space, completely swallowing the treasure they just fought for. Immediately, a terrifying scene happened. The moment the space-time coon beast swallowed the treasure, a fairy light appeared on its body and rose into the sky, like a line, with the end sinking into the void. The space-time coon beast let out a painful howl, its powerful aura causing the space to distort. After struggling for less than 3 seconds, the huge space-time coon beast's body instantly lost its balance. Almost instantly, He was pulled directly into the void by the fairy light, and instantly disappeared into the void. The whole process only took one breath. Some people even didn't realize that the space-time coon beast had disappeared. This sense of déjà vu is like being caught as a fish. It was only after half a stick of incense had passed since the time and space coon beast was dragged into the void that people slowly came to their senses and fled frantically towards the outside of the secret realm. Because, there is a being in the void who is more powerful than the space-time coon beast. Xiao Huo didn't hesitate at all and ran away. After running for a full 3 hours, he finally ran out of the secret realm. Fortunately, Master has foresight. Xiao Huo gasped and said. Thinking back to just now, it was really thrilling. If the Master were possessed, even if the treasure was snatched, the fate would definitely be the same as that of the space-time coon beast. That's not a treasure at all, it's more like a bait. Using treasures as bait to directly catch the space-time coon beast, what a powerful existence it is. After a while, the Master's voice came from the space ring. Disciple, I think the dream you talked about with me before may not be a dream. Exclamation mark. After hearing this, Xiao Huo certainly knew what the Master was referring to. Xiao Huo once told his master about how he was forced to sign a contract by a man on a strange river. But, he only talked about being forced to sign the contract, and did not say that he had traveled from another world. Because even Master cannot tell this kind of thing, he can only know it himself. But Master, haven't you also investigated? There is no such river in this world as I mentioned. In fact, in Xiao Huo's heart, he felt that that experience was probably just a dream during the time travel, and it felt a bit dreamy. Although it doesn't exist in this world, it doesn't mean it doesn't exist. Said the soul in the ring. You haven't told me yet, what is the contract he signed with you? Soul continued to ask. 10 treasures. And he said that when I get better, I will personally come to collect the debt. Xiao Huo spread his hands and said. Soul was silent for a long time before he solemnly said, then get ready. I would rather believe that something exists than something that doesn't exist. After hearing this, Xiao Huo also pondered for a moment, nodded and said, okay, actually I also plan to prepare. Although I'm not a good person, at least I have to be honest. Let's go, leave here first. Good. Su Mu looked at the big silver carp on the ground in front of him, gearing up, with a look of surprise on his face. A treasure fish must be able to eat. Otherwise, it would be a huge waste. Silver carp is big in size, with flat sides, and its meat is considered tender among fishes. Su Mu used to like fishing silver carp the most. Not to mention whether it tastes good or not, but it is really exciting to fish. Regarding how to cook silver carp, Su Mu has to talk about it. First, heat the pan with cold oil, sprinkle a thin layer of salt on the pan surface, and fry the cut fish pieces until golden brown on both sides. Then prepare dried chilies, Sichuan peppercorns, scallions and garlic cloves and sauté until fragrant. If possible, add some bean paste and hot pot base and stir fry until fragrant. Pour down the fried fish pieces, add an appropriate amount of boiling water to cover the fish pieces, turn on low heat, add half a spoonful of dark soy sauce, a spoonful of oil and a little salt. Close the lid and turn to high heat until the juice is reduced. Finally, sprinkle with some chopped green onion for garnish. This spicy silver carp dish is ready just like this. However, there are not so many modern seasonings made for Su Mu here. Therefore, Su Mu planned to make a simple version of boiled silver carp. With a wave of his hand, a large black iron pot appeared in front of him. This was no ordinary iron pot. It was a treasure that Su Mu got through a lottery some time ago. Let me emphasize, I only used a few favor points and I got it. This iron pot is called turtle pattern pot. After his testing, it was very durable and can be used as an iron pot for boiling water. After setting up the iron pot, Su Mu took out his old friend, the silver dagger. He picked this up by the river. Although it had 2 small gaps, it was very easy to use. It was much easier to use than the swords and knives he had picked up. Mainly sharp. A knife just needs to be sharp. Su Mu took the silver dagger and cut open the belly of the silver carp very easily. I have to say that this silver carp is really big and heavy. The internal organs taken out are estimated to weigh several thousand kilograms. He definitely wouldn't eat the fish's internal organs, but he didn't want to waste it. After all, it was a rare bite of precious fish. Su Mu stood on the shore and released his spiritual summons. The next second, the little dolphin and the ray came to the shore. He threw the treasure fish's 5 internal organs into the water and said, "Eat it, this is good stuff." As soon as the words fell, the little dolphin and the ray began to fight and almost fought. Seeing this, Su Mu frowned and said, Hey, what did I say last time? Live in peace. Don't fight, there are still many here." As soon as these words came out, the little dolphin and the ray stopped fighting and greedily ate the internal organs of the silver carp. These offal are as if they are a delicacy, they will make you slurp and bubble when you eat them. Su Mu kept a small part because there was still a little guy. He came to the small pond he built with pebbles. The young crabs had grown to the size of a palm. The crab shell is glazed green, and the 2 crab claws are so big that they are almost half the size of the crab, which is very intimidating. Su Mu knelt down and threw a piece of offal into the small pond. Eat. The next second, the little crab picked up the internal organs and started eating. After doing all this, Su Mu stood up. His pet had been fed, and it was time to prepare dinner for himself. It has to be said that Su Mu's knife skills are good. The fish meat he cut was square and even every tiny fish bone inside was removed. This silver carp was cut into 330 square pieces. The pot is also hot. Due to limited ingredients, Su Mu will not make spicy silver carp today, but will simply make a pot of boiled fish fillets. Su Mu used his magical power to control water, and with a wave of his hand, he diverted part of the river water and put it into the iron pot. After cooking so many treasure fish, Su Mu discovered a trick. That is to use the water from this river to cook the fish. It can be cooked very quickly. It does not take days and nights to cook it. It only takes 10 minutes at most to cook it. Su Mu ordered more than 100 pieces of fish and saved the rest for next time. Immediately, he executed the technique and used spiritual fire to burn the iron pot. Just like that, after cooking for less than 5 minutes, I smelled a strong aroma. Su Mu's eyes lit up when he smelled this fragrance. From the smell, he could tell that this fish was definitely a good product and a great tonic. At this time, Su Mu thought of something. With a wave of his hand, a piece of blood tai sui appeared in his palm. This blood tai sui was received by Su Mu a few months ago to collect the river crossing fee. He used a silver dagger to cut off a piece the size of a fingernail and threw it into the pot. It's not that Su Mu is reluctant to part with it, but he can only eat so much at one time. I still remember that the first time he ate it, he took a big bite and almost killed him, because the power of qi and blood contained in it was so terrifying. After shui tai sui was thrown in, the originally clear water turned dark red in an instant, and the majestic power of blood and qi mixed with the smell of fish poured out. One sip made your mouth water. Great supplement. Su Mu sat down cross-legged, inserted a piece of fish meat with a dagger, brought it to his mouth, and took a big bite. My eyes suddenly widened. So fragrant. After 3 times, 5 times and 2 times, this large piece of fish meat was eaten. After the fish meat entered my stomach, I felt warm in my stomach, and the majestic energy spread along the muscles and veins throughout my body. While eating, Su Mu seemed to bite something hard when eating a piece of fish. It almost broke his old teeth. What the hell is this? Su Mu looked at the thing in front of him and said doubtfully. What the hell is this? Su Mu looked at the bone-shaped object the size of a bullet in his hand and wondered. This thing looks like fish bones, but judging from his experience of killing fish at RT Mart for 10 years in his previous life, he knows exactly what bones are on the fish. There are absolutely no bones in this shape. At this time, his teeth were aching, and the hard bite he had just made almost shattered his old teeth. Su Mu was so angry that he was ready to throw them into the river. But the next second, something was wrong. Su Mu looked carefully and found that this dark bone was engraved with fine runes, which seemed to be words. After looking at it for a while, Su Mu was surprised. It turned out that the black color on the surface of this fish bone was not the color of the bone itself, but a series of layers of fine words superimposed into black. The more I read these words, the more familiar they become. Suddenly, he thought of something and took out a green leaf from his sleeve. This piece of green leaf was robbed from a man crossing the river some time ago. After careful study, he discovered that this piece of green leaf was not just a simple piece of green leaf, but a treasure. Moreover, the most important thing is that this green leaf is also engraved with fine words. He put the fish bones and green leaves together and compared them carefully. The more he compared them, the more frightened they became. Because the words on the fish bones and the green leaves seem to have the same origin. Although the two texts are different, they are closely related. It's like a book of exercises. The one on the fish bones is the first volume, and the one on the green leaves is the second volume. But after reading it carefully, it doesn't feel like a practice, but more like a rule. Some time ago, Sumyu also tried to practice the practice words on the green leaves, but he tried several times and ended in failure. Now that he had obtained this fish bone, he found that he seemed to understand a little bit more, connecting the previous and the next. Sumyu studied the text while eating boiled fish. Before I knew it, all the fish in the pot was finished. The next second, I felt the majestic energy in my abdomen, which was about to explode. Sumyu quickly stopped his research and began to perform exercises to absorb the energy in his body. However, Sumyu underestimated the energy contained in this precious fish. Even if Sumyu performed the divine elephant prison suppressing power and the blue sky dragon transformation technique at the same time, he still felt very strenuous. At that moment when the energy was about to get out of control, Su-Emu's second heart on the right and the supreme bone and golden bone on his body began to exert force, helping Su-Mu digest this majestic energy, and finally slowly suppress the rioting energy. It took more than 10 hours to completely digest and absorb this energy. Due to the existence of the golden heart, supreme bone and golden bone, the absorption rate reached a terrifying 90%, and only 10% of the energy was wasted. At this moment, Su-Emu's aura began to surge. The last divine treasure was condensed in an instant. Now, he has cultivated the most perfect 5 treasures of God transformation in ancient and modern times. We are only one step away from crossing the tribulation realm. Su-Mu exhaled a breath of turbid air and felt that his whole body was extremely transparent. He could feel that every inch of flesh and blood and every cell in his body had been sublimated. This precious fish directly allowed him to cultivate the last divine treasure. This shows how much this precious silver carp is a peerless medicine. However, this kind of treasure fish is so rare. After successfully completing the 5 treasures of transformation, Sumyu continued to study the characters on fish bones and green leaves. Unconsciously, Sumyu entered a state of mesmerizing enlightenment. Everything around him seemed extremely quiet, and the words were flowing in his mind. This is the state of enlightenment that monks dream of. In this way, Sumyu forgot the time and sat there for 7 days. After he opened his eyes, dots of Daoyun fairy light appeared in his pupils. He waved his hand toward the space in front of him, but nothing happened. Seeing this, Sumyu was also dumbfounded. Is he so weak? Because after 7 days of enlightenment, he finally knew what skills were recorded on the fish bones and green leaves. No, it's not a skill, it's a law called the power of space law. But after so long of meditation, Sumyu had only scratched the surface of his comprehension. When in doubt, add something first. Power of space rules. Level 0, 1000. Seeing this, Sumyu was dumbfounded. What the hell? To upgrade from level 0 to level 1, it actually costs 1,000 favor points. This is a bit too outrageous. Open your own favor point panel. River favor point. 25,360. During this period of time, he basically didn't spend much. He saved a total of 25,000 favor points, but it was more or less painful for him to take out 1,000 at once. It's still the same as before, let's improve the river affinity first. Care point 20,000. River affinity. Percent right pointing arrow, river affinity, percent. With the increase in percent, Su-Emu's contact with this river has increased a little bit. Because in order to leave this ghost place, the river must be refined first, so the favor points cannot be used as a lottery. There are still 5,000 favor points left, so use them to improve your own strength first. Care point 1000. Power of space rules. Level 0, 1000 right pointing arrow, power of space rules. Level 1, 10,000. After spending 1,000 care points to raise the power of space rules to the first level, Sumyu had countless insights in his mind. For a moment, he felt that he could crush the space in front of him with a wave of his hand. His pupils condensed and he held his hand towards the void in front of him. Not to mention crushing the space, he couldn't even distort the space. There was no change at all. Seeing this, Su Mu was dumbfounded. Is he so weak? It's probably because the space here is relatively solid. Su Mu could only comfort himself in this way. The power of this space rule, which was upgraded from level 1 to level 2, actually cost 10,000 favor points. This made Su Mu feel intimidated and he would not consider it for a short time. Let's wait until it is given later and then improve it. There are 4,360 favor points left. Su Mu opened his attribute panel. Host. Su Mu. Cultivation. 5 treasures of transformation into gods. Control magical powers. Water control, level 2, swimming, level 2. Mastering the skills. Qingtian Dragon Transformation Technique, 3rd level, Divine Elephant Prison Suppressing Strength, 3rd level. Mastering the Law. The Power of Space Rules, level 1. Water Controlling Beasts. Loach Dragon, World Ray Beast, Stone Beast. River Affinity, percent. River Blessing Points, 4,360 points. Su Mu discovered a blind spot. His attribute column had an extra column, Mastering the Laws, and the Power of Space Rules that he had just realized belonged to the laws, which seemed to be a higher level than the Kung Fu. In this case, let's improve the Qingtian Dragon Transformation Technique and the Divine Elephant's Prison Suppressing Power. Care Point 1500. The Divine Elephant's Prison Suppressing Power. 3 levels, 0, 1500, right pointing arrow, the Divine Elephant's Prison Suppressing Power. 4 levels, 0, 2000. Care Point 500. Qingtian Dragon Transformation Technique. 3rd level, 0, 500, right pointing arrow, Qingtian Dragon Transformation Technique. 4th level, 0, 1000. With the improvement of the 2 skills, Su Mu's understanding of these 2 skills has been raised to a new level. After the Divine Elephant's Prison Suppressing Power was upgraded to the 4th level, 1,000,000 flesh and blood particles turned into Divine Elephant particles. Including the previous 110,500 elephant pellets, there are now a total of 1,110,500 elephant pellets. After using the Divine Elephant's Prison Suppressing Power, the shadow of the Divine Elephant behind him became several times stronger. With the improvement of his skills, Su Mu's cultivation level has also been improved accordingly, and he is infinitely close to the realm of overcoming the tribulation. Since the 2 magical powers, water control and swimming, need to wait until the affinity reaches 1% before they can continue to improve, we will not consider this before that. After everything that needs to be improved is completed, there are still 2,360 favor points left. The gambling addiction is back. Take a gamble. Spend 1 point of care and win a normal draw. The next second, golden light flashed, and Su Mu's eyes widened when he saw the object in front of him. Ah, ah. One shot into the soul. Thanks for watching.